just heard how she said that actually she feels not that she any longer feels a connection to him as a father because he has offended Shiva, and therefore in text 18 she said that if someone has taken food which is poisonous, the best treatment is to vomit. So I have accepted a body from you, and since you are like full of poison because you have offended Shiva, so that's why I need to detach myself from your relationship to you. And the best way to do that is to give up my body. And of course that's what will happen. So these are the last words Sati addresses to Daksha. And yesterday she also says that it is better to execute one's own occupational duty than to criticize others. And she made the point that you don't understand who actually Lord Shiva is. You don't understand his position. You just criticized him without understanding his position. And it's interesting, this now basically Sati says that Shiva does not require to follow any Vedic injunctions. And why she's saying that? Because that was one of the criticism given by Daksha. In the second chapter, when we remember in the first place when the whole offense of Daksha took place, there is a series of shlokas where Daksha really very heavily blasphemes Shiva. And here in text 13 of chapter 2, Daksha said, I had no desire to give my daughter to this person who has broken all rules of civility. Because of not observing the required rules and regulation, he is impure. But I was obliged to hand over my daughter to him, just as one teaches the messages of the Vedas to a Shudra. So, basically Daksha says this Shiva is not following any rules and regulations. That's why, he's actually not worthy to have my daughter as wife. And of course, if you remember, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur and other acharyas, they then turned the blasphemy in glorification. Remember that? So this word lupta kriyaya, that he doesn't perform any rituals, which was the blasphemy of Daksha, can also be understood that he doesn't need to perform rituals because he's so elevated. And asuchaye, that she's impure, is also could be understood that no one is purer than him, and that he is proud. He's not proud. He's completely free from proud. And then that he actually is not qualified to have my daughter, and the other way around it could say also, I, being unqualified, did not want to give my daughter, but I gave her anyway. Although I'm not qualified, still I gave. So that's the way this blasphemy of Daksha can be turned around. But as we can see, Sati, after many years, still she remembered this blasphemy, and now, before giving up her body, she took the chance to again speak about it and point out, like you called Shiva someone who is not following Vedic rules and regulations. Listen, he doesn't need to follow these rules and regulations. That's the point. And Sati, explains, yes, there are rules and regulations, but for whom do they apply? And then we heard here about Pavritti and Nivritti, that those who are, there's two ways, for those who are still attached to material enjoyment, then there is the path of Pavritti, and mainly it means the Grihastha ashram. And for those who are detached, then they can practice Nivritti, which is the other ashrams. And the point is here that usually you have one person, goes one path, and you can't expect a Grihast to be renounced, and you can't expect a sannyasi to be attached. Of course, in Kali Yuga, everything is mixed up, and sometimes we see that the Grihasta behaves like a sannyasi, and the wife becomes completely fed up because he got 10 years of brahmachari training, and then they get married, and he's still in a brahmachari move, and he's not able to show emotions or show some kindness. So that's there, and sometimes we see a sannyasi supposed to be detached, but then he also gets entangled in some illicit activity. But in general, you wouldn't expect that. There is too clear path and too clear persons who go that path. But the point is that for someone who actually is on transcendental platform, he gives up both of that. Because for a devotee of Krishna, there is actually no question of attachment or detachment. And we spoke about that before, but we can again bring the point up. That actually someone who is on a transcendental platform, he's beyond these rules and regulations in a sense. And that's also the beauty of bhakti. Bhakti is very powerful, that just by adopting bhakti yoga and by actually really understanding what bhakti is, one immediately becomes situated in a platform where one again sees himself as a servant. And being a servant of Krishna, then there is no question of bhoga or tyaga. Because the only enjoyer is Krishna. Krishna is the ultimate enjoyer, and we are not enjoyers. No. So, and of course, if you still want to do that, if you still want to enjoy, then it's called Purusha Abhiman. Abhiman means like a mentality or desire. No. The conditioned souls, they have a Purusha Abhiman. They want to be or have the role of the enjoyer and the controller. And of course, that's the reason why we came into the material world at the first place. We spoke about that on Thursday. Why was the material world created? And Prabhupada gives an example that, like if the mother is cooking and a child wants to also help cooking, the mother knows I can't just place the child in front of the stove, with the fire. I can't give a sharp knife to cut. So the mother says, okay, give some, toy, play, kitchen. It looks like a kitchen, but actually you can't really cook there. But it looks like a kitchen, and the child can, move there, and the child is very happy, in imitating the mother cooking. So similarly, we want to enjoy, we want to be controlled. Now we say, I want to be the controller, I want to be the Purusha, I want to be the enjoyer. Then Krishna says, okay, here, go a little bit there and play. And that's the material world. The material world is a place for those who had a desire to themselves be in the center and try to, play the role of the enjoyer and controller. But the problem is that role is already given. There's only one person who is the enjoyer and the controller, and that's Krishna. And then, but if you still want to do it, then okay, there is a material world, you can try. And material world is also called Durga, it's also a prison house, that's a bit more straightforward explained. It's, prison house is for those who are criminal, so those who go against the natural law, then they go to the material world and stay there. But actually, Ekla Ishvara Krishna Ara Shapta Bhritya. Only one is to be served, Parameshvara, that's Krishna. The only Ishvara is Krishna, and all others are Bhritya, the servants, the Sevak. We are all meant to serve that one, that Ishvara, Krishna. But because we have forgotten this fact, then our mentality has become that we want to be this in the center. But if you understand that actually Krishna, he is the only Ishvara, the only controller and master, and we are his servants, then the little independence we got, because Krishna has given us independence, of course we have misused it, that's why we are here, but if we are intelligent, then we will take that little independence and use it properly in the service of the Lord. And we have been given independence. Why? Because we are part and parcel of the Lord. We are having the same qualities, so we got a little independence. But then that independence we should use properly. And the only reason why we actually got independence so that we can use it in the service of the Lord, that we can please Krishna. Because unless we are given independence, how can we give pleasure to anyone or to Krishna? And an example is given. Suppose a son is massaging his father's feet. That's of course a very Vedic picture. The son is massaging the father's feet. So, but then, if this, you have done? Yeah? Yeah, you see, there is so much Vedic culture there in this part of the world also. So, but if you do that, you need, if your hands are bound up, you can't massage. So you have freedom in the sense that you can move your hands freely, but that's meant. So if you tie his hands by a rope and ask, so please massage, it's not possible. So that's why you got some freedom, and this freedom is meant to serve. So similarly, Krishna gave us some independence, some freedom. But the only reason why he gave it to us is actually that we are able to serve him nicely. But we have misused and thought, I want to be Krishna myself, and that's why we came here. But then, if we understand that we are actually servants of Krishna, then this bhoga and tyaga, we understand they're not meant for us. Both are actually meant for Krishna. If Krishna wants to give up, he give up. If he wants to enjoy, he will enjoy. Our duty is only to please him, and that's all, nothing else. So if you are going to please him, then automatically you give up many things. Like we have experienced in our own life. When we started to adopt Krishna consciousness, just because we want to do whatever is pleasing for Krishna, many things we kind of give up and practice bhakti yoga. And in this way, because bhoga, enjoyment, we understand it's meant for Krishna, and also tyaga, we spoke about that also last week, that you can't renounce something that doesn't belong to you. How can you renounce? Oh, I give up. It never belonged to me. Then that's why everything belongs to Krishna, so there is no question of really renouncing. But it's all about engaging everything in Krishna's service. Now, here in the purport, Prabhupada also speaks about this stage of Shiva, because Shiva, obviously, he was on this transcendental platform, where he understood, I'm a servant of Krishna, I'm not the enjoyer, not the controller. And that's why he was not really, it was not required for him to follow rules and regulation, because he already achieved the highest platform. And Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita 2:52 and 3, explaining that Krishna also speaks about this platform. So there it says, Krishna says to Arjuna, when your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in trance of self-realization, then you will have attained divine consciousness. So the Vedas, they give so many instructions, and that's why it's described here also, the flowery language of the Vedas, instructions that actually are just meant to, fulfill our desires. Of course, because the Lord knows the conditioned souls, we are very much attached to sense gratification. So instead of just going for sense gratification in a sinful way, then the Lord gives us Vedas and a religion, and that we still can enjoy it because that's our desire, but at least we do it in a certain way which is religious. That means we do it in connection with Krishna or with the Devas. And that's the idea of following karma kanda. And also if someone goes to the priests, to the brahmanas and performs rituals, although actually he has just a desire to enjoy more in the world, but by being in the contact with the brahmanas, then the brahmanas start to speak about the heavenly planets, and then they think, there's something better. And then they also speak about liberation, and they speak about the true nature of the soul and the body, and then they ultimately will speak about Parameshvara, the Supreme Person, about Krishna, Vishnu, Narayan. And then by associating with the Brahmanas, they also develop a desire to attain the highest goal. And when Arjuna hears that okay, there is a person who is completely renounced, then he becomes eager and wants to know more. What are the qualities and symptoms of such a person? And in the purport of these shlokas, also Prabhupada gives an interesting verse, just one second, which describes this platform of someone who has pure love of God and therefore is not really required to follow the traditional rules and regulations. And also this shloka we mentioned the other day when we gave class, but it's maybe nice to read. Okay, Prabhupada says in the purport to 252, there are many good examples in the lives of the great devotees of the Lord, of those who became indifferent to the rituals of the Vedas simply by devotional service to the Lord. When a person factually understands Krishna and his relationship with Krishna, he naturally becomes completely indifferent to the rituals of fruitive activities, even though an experienced brahmana. So it's important to understand, like a person who is on a transcendental platform, of course it doesn't mean that he when it says that he gives up rules and regulation, it doesn't mean that he starts to act very whimsically or acts in an immoral way or a sinful way. That's not the meaning. But he gives up these rules and regulations given by the Vedas for karma kanda, for fruitive activities and all these things. Because he directly acts under the Supreme Lord, and he's on the perfect platform already, understanding himself as a servant of Krishna. And an example of Madhavendra Puri is given, which we mentioned the other day also, where it says, Madhavendra Puri is saying, "O my prayers 3 times a day, all glories to you. O bathing, I offer my obeisances unto you. O demigods, O forefathers, please excuse me for my inability to offer you my respect. Now, wherever I sit, I can remember the great descendants of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa, and thereby I can free myself from all sinful bondage. I think this is sufficient for me." This is a nice prayer. So he says, O forefather, O devas, O rituals, all glories to you, but please excuse me if I don't give so much attention to you anymore. Because now I have Krishna, and I perform devotional service. And just by remembering Krishna, I will be freed from all sinful reactions. And not only that, I will develop pure love of God, and in this way I develop the highest perfection of life. Then why should I bother about this rule and that rule to come to the heavenly planets, or this rule to, help my forefathers or something like that? Just by, becoming a devotee of Krishna, I attain everything what can be attained. And of course, this is an expression of faith, bhakti, faith in devotional service, conviction that actually bhakti is the highest and I don't need anything else. And Prabhupada says, the Vedic rites and rituals are imperative for neophyte, comprehending all kind of prayer 3 times a day, taking a bath early. But when one is fully in Krishna consciousness and is engaged in his transcendent loving service, one becomes indifferent to all these regulative principles because he has already attained perfection. If one can reach the platform of understanding by service, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, has no longer to execute different types of penances and sacrifices, as recommended in the revealed scriptures. So, when Arjuna hears this, I mean, not exactly this is Prabhupada's purport, but that one is not anymore disturbed by the Vedic flowery language of the Vedas, then Arjuna is asking, "O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged into transcendence? How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk?" You remember this question? So he's asking, so what are the symptoms of one who is in transcendence? And basically, Lord Shiva is on that platform. That's why Prabhupada mentioned it. And of course, Sati knows that Shiva is on that platform. And therefore, she's telling Daksha that, what are you talking? That he doesn't follow the rules and regulation. He doesn't have to follow, because he's on a transcendental platform. Okay. I just thought to speak a little bit about this Sthita Prajna, which is the person who is actually absorbed in that transcendental platform. And there are symptoms how you can recognize such a person. And it's quite interesting how it is described, especially with the commentaries of Vishnava Chakravarti Thakur. But I don't know, are there any questions so far to this, what we heard? Because
So thank you very much so far. I wanted to ask, like we heard now of Shiva, and he's like on a really high platform of transcendence, and so he doesn't have to follow these rules and regulations anymore. And at the same time, you mentioned that someone who practiced bhakti yoga, he also is immediately on this platform, kind of, right? And I wanted to ask, like, when is someone really practicing this bhakti and is on this stage? Because we know that if you come in contact with a spiritual master, he plants the bhakti lata in your heart, and then you start to practice. But is it already then, or is it on a level like on bhava or prema?
Okay, good question. When does it actually? Yeah, on what platform we are there? I mean, the idea is that bhakti has the potential to place you immediately on this platform, in the sense that it gives you all the required understanding. Like that realization that I'm a servant of Krishna is so powerful. It makes you realize, everything at once. Of course, if you realize it, you can. If you still think I'm Prabhu, everyone should call me Prabhu, then it's not yet realized. But if you understand that das more deeper, that I'm dasa, I'm a servant, then, and that's a gradual development. It's not from. It will take time. Yeah.
So I have also a question.
Mm-hmm.
The material world means actually the complete material universe we are living in. Is it true?
The material
The material world.
Yes.
Is all the different 14 worlds something? and which are in this universe.
Yes, or even
So
I mean, that's only one universe, and there is unlimited universe. That's all the material world, in a sense.
but that also means that that it's also the higher planets, like not the planets where the demigods live, maybe, but there are some other planets where
The sages live, and
yeah, so they are also still attached to enjoyment. Then, the conclusion. The material, we are here to fulfill our wishes to enjoy.
Okay, I understand your question, because I said in the material world everyone is here to, take the role of Krishna, want to be the controller, enjoyer.
Yeah.
Of course, there is different graduation. Like in the material world, as human beings, most of us are completely into that consciousness. But then, of course, some very elevated sages, rishis, who have been performed tapasya for many, many lifetimes, they may be very detached already. But the fact that they're still in the material world means that there is still some impurity there, some little small attachment maybe. And some of them at the end of Brahma's life, they go back. Some maybe at the end of their life will return. But in principle, whoever has a material body has still some attachment. Of course, there is the pure devotees, the Jivan Muktas, who they come into the material world, they live in the material world, but actually they are already liberated while they are here. That's also there, but that's very rare. Like personality like Srila Prabhupada, in a sense, is already liberated, although he's still on the planet. And that's also true for this Sthita Pragya, for this personality that is described. So the question here, Arjuna wanted to know, do we have an English Bhagavad Gita there, which I could have? Thank you. Yeah, so Arjuna wanted to know what are the symptoms of a personality who is absorbed in that consciousness, where one is actually on a platform of this Brahmabhuta platform or in trance. And Prabhupada makes the point that there is always symptoms for something, like a rich man. The symptoms of a rich man. What is the symptom of a rich man? Good car. Or like entourage. And you can see the way he's dressing, very opulent. I mean, not me, but very. That's just like a few rupee. But a very rich man has a jacket and clothing which is a few $1,000 worth, and a very expensive watch. So the way the person is dressed, you can understand. Well, he must be rich. You have not seen the bank balance, but just by seeing the symptoms, you can understand the person must be rich. And similarly, if someone is sick, then also there are certain symptoms, like coronavirus. There's coughing, there is heavy breathing, and different symptoms, which is the indication that one has this disease. Or also, if someone is a good singer, how do you know that he's a good singer? Well, when he starts to sing, before you don't know, but as soon as he sings, you know, okay, he sings nicely or not. So there is symptoms for everything, and there are also symptoms for someone who is actually Krishna conscious. So Prabhupada says that one can know specific symptoms from the Bhagavad Gita. Most important is how the man in Krishna consciousness speaks, for speech is the most important quality of any man. It's interesting. What comes out of the mouth. It is said that a fool is undiscovered as long as he does not speak. And certainly a well-dressed fool can not be identified unless he speaks. But as soon as he speaks, he reveals himself at once. The immediate symptom of a Krishna-conscious man is that he speaks only of Krishna and of matters relating to him. Other symptoms then automatically follow, as stated below. Then more symptoms are given. But the point is that there are symptoms, and these can be observed. So the first question was, how does he speak? And the interesting thing is actually that how does he speak not only just means what he says or which language he speaks or in what way he speaks. It's more also how he reacts when his ego is attacked. That's what it means. How does he speak? Because in general, like if someone is the inner meaning, how are his mentality and words affected by affection, anger, and neutrality? Like if someone is angry with you, how do you speak? Means how do you react? You know, if someone is angry with you, how would you react if someone is angry with you? Yell at him back. Very honest. But that's usually what we do. No, like if someone comes with a lot of anger towards us, then our reaction is we give anger back, because we feel attacked. The false ego, it becomes active, and then we want to we feel a need to defend ourselves, and it's a very natural thing, and it happens usually automatic. It's triggered. It triggers something, and then we immediately react. But a sadhu or someone on the transcendental platform, he will be completely steady. One who is not disturbed, that's Krishna's answer then. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. In a material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. So he remains equiposed. In anger, that's one thing, but also in affection. If someone praises you, how do you react if someone praises you? Oh Prabhu, this was such a nice kirtan you sang, or great cooking today. So how do we react on that? Krishna's mercy, yes. Or we say, oh, finally someone recognizes my glories. No? Somehow in our heart we feel relieved. Oh, finally. No, I already knew all my wonderful qualities, but finally the world also recognizes. and we enjoy. We relish. Please, more. Yeah, tell me more. We relish that people praises us. But a Sthita Prajna, one on the transcendental platform, he's not affected either by praise. Of course, in some way, it's quite natural. We need some, recognition, and that's okay. But if we are within so unsecure or so we feel so empty that we hanker for recognition, then that's a problem. And we define ourselves how people praise us or not praise us. That's a problem. But a Sthita Prajna, one on the transcendental platform, he's completely Atmaram, self-satisfied, and he's in connection with Krishna. So he's not dependent on the opinion of other people. And if someone ignores us, if someone is neutral or ignores us, that can be very annoying. If someone is just not giving attention to us, usually it also triggers anger or frustration. But a Sthita Prajna remains peaceful. And that's how he speaks, in the sense that how he reacts. Of course, there is more symptoms, how he sits and how he walks. Means in a sense how he's able, what is the consciousness, how he sits means basically, what is his consciousness while he's absorbed. When he withdraws his senses, then what is his mind doing when he's in meditation? That's how he sits. In the sense that he is absorbed in Krishna. Because sometimes when we sit in meditation, what do? Like we had Nirjala Ekadashi, and then okay, we fast, but then we think about food all the time. You know? And that's not the way how a Sthita Prajna sits or meditates. If he meditates, and he's fixed in his mind in the transcendence. That's how he sits. And then how he walks is how he is actually engaging his senses in the service of the Lord. No. And Prabhupada explains that just like a tortoise can withdraw the senses and then again uses it. And there's amazing purport. Prabhupada says basically a bhakti yogi only uses the senses in the service of the Lord, not otherwise. No. Because the senses always want to see the sense objects and want to get pleasure from that. And usually a conditioned soul is very much under the control of the senses, and that's why we are called Godasa, we are the servant, the slave of our senses. But a Goswami completely controls the senses and only engages the senses in the service and not otherwise. So these are some of the symptoms of the Sthita Prajna, or someone who is on that platform of transcendence. And if you have reached such a level, then there is no question of being a Grihastha, being a sannyasi, following Pavariti or following Nivritti, following this Vedic injunction or not. But you actually have attained perfection, and you always act perfectly. You always act in line with the Paramatma and the Lord, and therefore you don't require to follow some rules and regulations because you're already doing. And Shiva was on that platform, and Daksha didn't understood, blasphemed him, and now here before Sati gives up her body, she just want to make that point clear to Daksha. Listen, you called him that he's not, call him someone an offender who does not follow. Actually, he doesn't need to follow because he's always absorbed in Krishna. And yeah, that's the point Sati makes here to Daksha. Okay, then we will end here. Thank you very much. Grantaraj, Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Jai Gopramanande, Hari Hari Bol. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Bheva Cha Patita.